Ari.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks so much. Welcome to The Beat, everyone. I'm Ari Melber. We begin with Donald Trump trying to abuse power in ways that are catching up to him. We've been reporting on how some CEOs are standing up stronger and taller as compared to, say, last year. And now we have the rumor that the leak that Trump might settle his own lawsuit against the IRS. Now, this is a weird one and speaks to some of the inherent kind of everyday corruption that has been attempted to be normalized by Trump. The judge was pushing back, pointing out that Trump is suing entities whose decisions are subject to his direction. That's a legal version of saying, why are you suing yourself if you're suing the IRS and you, of course, run the Trump administration that oversees the IRS? Now, the judge has given Trump and the DOJ until May 20th to basically prove that this is legitimate, that it is actually possible for the private party citizen, Donald Trump, to bring this case against the government controlled by the Trump administration, and that is a real and actual conflict, which is required for this kind of case. Now, this matters in a bunch of ways because, remember, Trump has been busted for dodging taxes. The IRS habitually does an audit of the president or vice president, which is a good thing to deal with potential corruption or other issues. You want to have a look at that. And one of the things that Trump was trying to do with this case was get out from under that. The Times reports the administration might just settle before the deadline mentioned, and they have teams that would try to get things done like that audit drop. Now, Congressman Raskin said Trump's DOJ also has now paid millions to FBI agents who were suspended, he argues, legitimately for misconduct, that basically it's kind of like a political payoff to the very individuals who in this upside-down world were supposed to be sanctioned, not rewarded. Group representing the agents, though, does push back. I want you to know what they said. The Post reporting this whole thing they view as a temper tantrum and that they're fighting for what they say is the proper process for these individuals. And that's not all. FBI Director Patel has been facing scrutiny for that story that we've been reporting on. And I mentioned CEOs fighting back, Rupert Murdoch pushing back on behalf of his Wall Street Journal and Fox News empire when sued by Trump in civil court. And now there was this big issue about whether, the question being whether, Donald Trump's DOJ went back at Murdoch again by trying to hassle Wall Street Journal reporters in that leak probe. Now, all of this put Patel back under the hot seat for a range of issues, by the way, but he's been grilled by the senators there over the reports that he is trying to basically hassle reporters, that it's not a legitimate probe, but rather a way to go at the Journal. And as always, we tell you if there are denials or other sides of the story that are credible, we will include them. This is a denial under oath. And so I want you to hear what the FBI director is saying in response.
There are reports that you're using FBI resources to investigate journalists. Can you commit to this committee today that no agent hours have been pulled from other work like counterterrorism or violent crime investigations to work on matters related to negative press about you or your personal lawsuit?
Senator, I greatly appreciate the question, and I can tell you unequivocally, this FBI is targeting and investigating no journalists.
Now, target is a term of art. It may be that they have the goal of hassling journalists without targeting them, but when he says they're also not investigating them, that would suggest that there is a limit there. Now, here's, of course, the issue. The New York Times report about the same subject says the FBI is investigating a Times reporter after an article on Patel's girlfriend. That's in addition to the Wall Street Journal subpoenas that I mentioned. So you've got a couple of things here that at least are involving journalists. But again, when sometimes people say in this era, well, maybe nothing matters or they don't care, well, clearly the director, at least under oath, wants to say they're not doing this, that they're not targeting the press, that they don't have an enemies list, which reminds you that even for them, even by the standards of Kash Patel, there are some things that are bad enough that they would rather deny it than be seen as doing it. And that's part of the rule of law and what we might call our civil and civic discussions thereof. Now, amid all of this, Trump's DOJ is also winding its way through the courts and finding a lot of turbulence. Politico reports that judges have ruled against some of the ICE detention practices, not 10 or 100 times, but 10,000 times in most of the cases, 90%. So this was an exhaustive report that reminds you why, if you've heard a little bit less about immigration lately or Stephen Miller taking a back seat, partly it's because in a slow, long-term way, some of those drastic measures have been trimmed. Judges ruling against Trump more than 8 times the amount they ever rule for him. So that's a lot of losses. Trump's DOJ of course, is still trying to find ways around all of this. And that has included these ploys and tricks where they have acting prosecutors and temps trying to do things that the permanent people, the nonpartisan people won't do. And other times, really playing fast and loose with whether they have to follow all of these rulings. They've also drafted a legal opinion internally, which says they think they have the power to take state voter rolls. Federal courts, though, have already ruled against that. And so the DOJ writing up its own internal memo about something that violates a court order is itself a problem. The memo claims that they are authorized to compel states to produce their voter lists. DOJ says they want this in order to combat non-citizens from being registered to vote or making it onto those rolls. Now, if that is the reason, and that's a big if, they don't need to do this because we already have data and voluminous evidence from the state level that states already do that, and you just don't have a lot of folks ever making it on the rolls who are non-citizens. And so again, we want to show you the facts and the details, but it doesn't look like a good faith effort to actually prevent, say, voter fraud or secure the election. It looks, just like the IRS case and some other things that they're trying, like an effort to abuse power. I want to bring in Melissa Murray, law professor with NYU, MS Now analyst. Her new book, The U.S. Constitution, A Comprehensive and Annotated Guide for the Modern Reader, is out now. You can get it wherever books are sold. The cover almost looks like it's going to be the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and then it's a little bit of you as well.
Well, the Constitution is in there, too.
Sure. But I mean, someone might pick this up.
It's like it's Melissa Murray times James Madison, the best collab you never knew you needed.
James Madison featuring Roth.
Yes.
We love it.
I love it.
So, yeah, because you don't have to be a constitutional expert to know if it were the Constitution, it wouldn't be that thick.
That's true.
You didn't know the news was going to start with your book. We hope people like it. On to the news. What does it tell you that the DOJ is trying these games?
So the whole idea of the DOJ writing a memo that it's now citing, I mean, this is sort of like, do you remember that Divinal song, I cite myself, or I touch myself? This is like I cite myself. The DOJ is like writing memos to cite for the proposition that the president has this authority to compel the states to turn over this voter registration data and give it to DHS. And lower federal courts have said that they don't. And the fact that the Sixth Circuit has fast-tracked this question for appeal suggests that this is a really live issue. And it's one that can really upend the infrastructure of federal elections going forward if there is an opportunity for the executive and the DOJ to use this information and then turn it over and use it in Homeland Security for whatever reason. As you say, there is no evidence that elections are being overrun by fraud, by people who are voting who are not supposed to be voting. So this all seems a little pretextual, but it's worse than a pretext because here you actually have the DOJ furnishing the evidence itself of the authority that it has to do this, which is just not something that you see. This would basically be like my students grading themselves and then putting it on their transcripts.
The other news from the FBI director, very low bar, but unlike, say, the president he serves, who admits to unconstitutional plots in public regularly. What does it tell you that Director Patel, who's been embattled for a number of reasons, really wanted to say, hey, no, even if it's popular on the right or from his boss to go after the free press and the First Amendment, he claims they're not.
Well, I mean, again, you can go after the free press in a lot of different ways. So Kash Patel was at great pains to disclaim the prospect that they are targeting journalists. I'm not sure that they even need to. The president and this administration, through a series of lawsuits, has basically cowed media institutions into submission. As we know, there is an important precedent on the books, New York Times versus Sullivan, that says that in order to establish defamation, you have to show that the person who allegedly defamed you acted with actual malice. It's a very high standard. It is the bedrock of a free press in the United States. It's what distinguishes the free press in the United States from press in the UK and whatnot. Donald Trump hates this decision, and he has tried to sort of get cases to the Supreme Court to overrule it. Hasn't worked. He's managed to do it through these settlements, though, with these media institutions. Like, for example, that ABC News settlement around George Stephanopoulos allegedly defaming him by calling him, like, instead of saying sexual abuse. By basically getting ABC to settle, and he confirms perhaps to the public that something wrong has happened and that he has been injured in the way that a defamation suit that had been successful might have confirmed his injury. So through these settlements, he's managed to backdoor his way into getting the kind of outcome he wants. He gets to cow these media institutions. He gets to ensure their silence going forward and to limit their dissent to his policies. And he also gets to basically confirm that he has been the injured party. So they're already targeting the media. They're just not doing it directly.
Yeah, and I think that's a good primer. And some are cowed and some are not. And even Disney ABC is less cowed lately. Maybe they're a little more, calved. I don't know. But
not every news organization is going to have the resources of.
No, I agree. I agree with the problem you're mentioning.
Deterrence problem.
But Patel doesn't want to say he's a part of this. Does that mean that there's some line there? I mean, we hear so much about how nothing matters. You've told us some of your law students say, well, ha, the rules.
Well, Kash Patel's kind of on the ropes right now.
Yeah. So I'm asking, what do you think of that? Is that good?
Maybe he's looking for what comes next for him when he is no longer FBI director, if that is something that is in the offing for him. I think for the American public, the idea of a free press is bedrock. And the idea that you would target journalists for doing their job is a line in the sand that we ought not cross. This is not something that seems American. And I think the fact that he was at great pains to disclaim that today speaks to that. But again, I want to emphasize, whatever he says, this administration is still trying to cow the press every single day.
Right. And you're echoing something our colleague Rachel talks about. Watch what they do, not what they say. But it is important, as the Trump approval crashes and we're reminded and people say, wait, are you alone? Are you crazy? Actually, no. The country is against particularly the idea that the government, the big government's going to pick our comedians and control what's on our airwaves, et cetera.
It seems anathema. It seems un-American. It is exactly the kind of thing the First Amendment was intended to prevent.
Because I'm jumping around with you and we love starting the show with you because you got expertise, I want to show a little bit of the president talking about this strange thing where the judge really was saying on the IRS front, wait, is this even a case? Like, who's suing who and who are you? Which, in the case of a president, is one of these interesting legal questions of, are you a person? You're a taxpayer. You're also overseeing the tax function. So here was this moment.
You're suing the IRS. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be on both sides of a lawsuit.
It's very interesting. I have another one where, I've virtually won the Mar-a-Lago break-in suit. And, I have to work out some kind of a settlement. I'm supposed to work out a settlement with myself.
I'm supposed to work out a settlement with myself. Your thoughts?
Said nobody ever. So to get into federal court and to stay in federal court, you have to have what's known as standing. Standing requires a lot of things, an injury, but it also requires adversity among the parties. When you are the president of the United States, even if you filed this lawsuit in your personal capacity, the fact that you oversee the IRS and now may be negotiating a settlement with this department that you oversee means that there's no real adversity here. You're not at odds with each other. You're contiguous with each other. In fact, the president controls the IRS. It is part of the executive branch. Therefore, a lawsuit pitting the president, even in his personal capacity, against an agency that he oversees would confound, I think, traditional practices of standing for Article 3 federal courts. I think this one is going to be really hard for the president to sustain.
So, translation, because you can't necessarily sue and settle yourself, he would be, he would be dismissed and thus lose the case. He would have lack standing and the case would go away.
The case might go away for want of standing just because the president in his personal capacity is overseeing the IRS, although there could be other ways to reframe this, maybe a trust that the president is not involved with. But again, that could still raise the problems with self-dealing and corruption because he still oversees the administrative agency. Again, this is an ongoing issue with a president who has really become the plaintiff in chief in a lot of ways.
And South Park makes fun of him as like this whiner. I mean, we have this headline banner on the screen. It's a little meta to talk about it while we're here, but here we go. Judge asked Trump if he's suing himself. I mean, it's because it's bananas. And then this is amidst, and this is, you get the final word, amidst a climate where people are struggling and they're paying high prices and they got gas concerns. They got all these other things. And he's over here trying to use what looks like a trick. I mean, we'll cover the case where it goes. So it currently hasn't been completely detonated yet. But what looks like a trick to get himself a tax benefit while people are suffering.
So I've spoken about the jurisdictional questions here about the president suing in his personal capacity, but ultimately having it being resolved in the context where he has real in actual official capacity. There's also enormous ethical questions here about the president reaching a settlement with an agency that he controls that gives him enormous benefits. Like, this is a stunning opportunity for unprecedented self-dealing and corruption. And I think that is also what the judges like. Just the question of jurisdiction and the president suing himself and an agency he controls, but also what it means to allow the president to go forward and do that.
I'm going to close with some true compliments, which are the best kind. You're a legal expert. You're very smart. And you're an author.
Arthur.
Author.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. That's the whole thing.
That was it. Did you want more than that?
I mean, with you, I
you never know what you're going to get. All right, I get it. Well, we love to see our guests win, and congratulations on the book.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Professor. We're going to fit in a quick break, and we're back in 90 seconds. We are back. Melissa Murray's here. I wanted to turn to the other legal issue that we were planning to get to, which is choice and women's health. Someone you know well that we also rely on, Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney, writes, we could see anything in this coming days from an unsigned Supreme Court decision that would permit the law to go into effect while litigation proceeds to something more substantive regarding whether women can take what is a very common way to end early pregnancy. If the court goes the latter route, it's unlikely it would dig too deep without hearing this case. We've heard about the shadow docket, which is a related thing. I don't want to go deep into that, but the idea that even the court could remove what is a currently available health care treatment option for women in this manner without taking a full briefing in case, even that seems quite extreme. Can you prime us for the, go ahead.
When you have 6, they let you do what you want, as they say. I don't know that we can rule out anything from this conservative 6-3 supermajority. So the Substack post that you're referring to, Joyce wrote about the Fifth Circuit's decision basically imposing a nationwide ban on mifepristone, which is the first drug in the 2-drug medication abortion protocol. This has been a major way for women to terminate pregnancies in the wake of Dobbs and the overruling of Roe versus Wade. It's also a major tool for miscarriage management, and 1 in 3 women suffers and loses a pregnancy.
So effectively, something close to a national abortion ban.
A national abortion ban.
For that tool.
It was immediately appealed by the makers of mifepristone, Danco and Gen Biopro, to the Supreme Court. Justice Alito, who is the circuit justice for the Fifth Circuit, issued a stay. That stay expired on Monday. It has been extended to Thursday. So on Thursday, we will get more clarity on what the court is likely to do. One of the things that Joyce noted was that the court could allow the Fifth Circuit's decision to continue while this litigation plays out, which would mean there would be a nationwide ban on mifepristone being distributed through telehealth or in the mails in the United States until this litigation percolates its way back up to the Supreme Court. Or it could issue a stay that would be lifting the ban that the Fifth Circuit has imposed and let the status quo, which has allowed this medication to be distributed via telehealth and through the mails while the litigation is pending. That's up to the court. All of that could happen on the shadow docket with very little explanation. Another alternative that Joyce raises, I think, is also one that we haven't talked about in a long time, is that we have the Comstock Act, which is still on the books, and it prevents the distribution of articles meant for quote unquote immoral purposes to be distributed through the mails. And all you need is a Department of Justice that's willing to do this. And I think post midterms, we might get that kind of Department of Justice that would be willing to enforce the Comstock Act, which has been lying dormant for years as a kind of zombie law.
Yeah, it's really sobering, and it speaks to how, you have to really look at what the agenda is. And what you said, 6 justices willing to not only go this far, but do it outside of any regular order or real substantive process, which to me, we're running out of time, suggests that they don't even care about looking legitimate.
Well, the Chief Justice the other day was at the Third Circuit Judicial Conference, and he was bemoaning this idea that the public thinks the court is just doing politics, it's not doing law. But I think when you have decisions like this, I don't know that you have any other conclusion as a member of the public that you could draw. The fact that they overruled Roe versus Wade the minute they had a 6-3 conservative supermajority, the fact that they overruled affirmative action, Chevron deference while doing it. These are all pet projects of the right, and they all happened as soon as the court had the votes to do it.
Yeah. As mentioned, we learn a lot from you, Professor Murray. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
On several topics. Let me tell folks what's coming up, because we have video of Donald Trump falling asleep. It's gone viral. People were in the room. A secret United States intelligence assessment that suggests they are not being straight with you about this now costly war. And Republicans on defense while Trump commits another gaffe about finances.
I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
Al Sharpton's here next.
And
Mr. President, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
He doesn't think about Americans' financial situations. In the pantheon of presidential gaffes, this is a big one. And there's a narrative I've told you where people say, oh, Trump gets away with everything. Nobody cares. And then there's the reality that his polls are crashing, Republicans retiring, Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson saying he's, quote, evil, and they're done with him. And we're still in the beginning of this. Donald Trump's already crashed to the worst second-term approval of any president since we've been measuring. And comments like this obviously don't help. Democrats hitting him for it.
It's good to see Donald Trump telling the truth about something.
Donald Trump has made clear that he and the Republican Party don't give a damn about the personal finances of the American people.
I don't see how he has time to think about the financial prospects of the American working class when he's spending all of his time thinking about how to enrich himself.
He's not even trying.
No.
He's just saying, it doesn't matter to me.
He's certainly not focused on the everyday costs of struggling working families.
Costs have gone up, and it's a direct result of Republican policies.
Here are the numbers. Groceries, gas, energy prices, regular consumer goods are all up. 59% of Americans view the economy as getting worse. And a whopping 3/4 of the country blames Trump, 77%. I mean, that is just an overwhelming show of unity in our divided times that this is Trump's fault as inflation ticks up near 4%, a 3-year high. Here's how it's playing on Fox.
Food prices, grocery prices, core inflation, those numbers are up.
We are now deeper in the red. Markets do not like what they're seeing.
This is pretty devastating, actually.
Now, you might expect any politician in any party in any decade to say, I hear you, we're working on it, I'm thinking about it, I feel your pain, yada, yada, yada. The phrases sort of write themselves, right? But Donald Trump has this problem where he often does blurt things that are true. The Washington Post said he's been caught in more lies than any other public official ever. So he does lie a lot, but then he blurts things that are true. You heard the Democrats there saying this is true. He doesn't think about it. He doesn't care. And Republicans have a problem at a time where they don't want to be tied to that. And they've been asked about this gap.
The president thinks about Americans' financial situation.
Every time I talk to him, he's focused on affordability.
I didn't see that.
He's got a lot on his plate, including the war.
When we get the Strait of Hormuz reopened, that will alleviate a lot of pressure with gas prices and other things in the economy.
That's the speaker's view. Here's some reporting. Iran has restored the operational access to the vast majority of its missile sites. That's 30 out of 33 if you're counting, and the New York Times did. That's a long ways from what Trump and his Pentagon were pushing, the idea that even though people are paying a lot and there's no end in sight and we got a bad situation because the strait is closed when it used to be open, at least they've obliterated a lot of Iran's weapons potential. It's not even true. I'm joined now by Reverend Al Sharpton, the host of Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network. I went through all that. It makes him look bad, but it's all true. I mean, I just went through the numbers and what he's saying and why Republicans are running from what Trump is saying. Your view tonight.
When you look at the president saying out of his own mouth that he's not caring about the financial status of Americans, while he was headed to China with his billionaire buddies as his friends going with him to cut whatever deal that is there, that the purpose of them going. I mean, you have to stop and ask yourself now, I don't care. I'm not concerned with America's finances, but I am concerned about Elon Musk and the 2 or 3 other billionaires that I'm going to bring with me that need to get their deals straight with China. So how contemptible is that to the American people. He didn't just say this now at some backward rally somewhere. He said this on his way to hook up with his billionaire boys and board Air Force One that we're paying for to go over to China to try and work out some energy deals, some technology deals, and all. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to be there. If any other president had done this, he would be the first one calling for their impeachment. This is like spitting in the face of Americans. It's bad enough you're rolling up the gas stations and the price is $4.50 up. It's bad enough groceries are up. But now you have the guy you voted for, if you're in a red state or if you're a member of MAGA, saying, I'm not thinking about you. Come on, Elon, come on. I'm going to get these. Let's talk to Xi about getting some of this business straight. And he's saying it out loud.
You know, we've talked, and you've lived a career that looks at the slow march of public opinion on civil rights, marriage equality. It can take decades. What does it tell you when we look at $29 billion for this war and the gas reaction, that in a matter of weeks, people went from skeptical concern, I mean, nobody was welcoming it, to now just a country, including Tucker and the folks I mentioned, just wholly against this war?
I think that what it shows is that, one, Americans are a lot wiser and a lot more informed. Second, they were overpromised by Trump in the first place. So if you're looking for, if you're a child and daddy promised you a pony and he shows up with a squirrel, you're disappointed because it's not what you were looking for. And third is because he is so blatant and open with it. We've never had a president that would openly show how he does not care about the average American, doesn't understand what they're going through, and really has no compassion for them. I think that combination cut the calendar, because you don't have someone trying to act compassionate or act like I'm getting it or act like I feel your pain. You have somebody that's saying, oh, you're hurting? Oh, well, that's too bad. I've got this deal to cut. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I think that even the most avid fan of Donald Trump has to question themselves, and the rest of them have to say, this is not what we bargained for.
Yeah, and it's such a fast seismic shift. I'm going to ask you a question and get your answer on the other side, as they say. The question is, with all of this crashing, if we had a parliamentary system, if we were like England, and they held a snap vote today, would Donald Trump survive it? Because that's just the rules. Lawyers always say, you know, show me the rules, I'll show you the winner. Would he even survive a confidence vote today? We're going to get more Rev on the other side.